Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Gonna have a guest, gonna have my guy Mel, the host of the Mandown Sports podcast, joining us, and we're gonna talk some NBA. Should be very interesting, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But before we get to all that, if you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast. We should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, please make sure you give us that 5-star review, give us that like, and subscribe to the channel and leave us a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us, helps us take this show to a new level for the year 2024. And let's get right to it. Me, Mel, Mandown Podcast, the Format Podcast. Let's get it. And joining me tonight, like I mentioned, I got my main man, Mel, host of the Mandown Podcast here on YouTube. And he's joining me to talk all things NBA. Mel, thank you so much for joining the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite, man. I'm excited, man. I'm ready to get into it, man. I'm ready to talk some sports, man.
Absolutely. Let's do it, man. So for today, I know you're a big NBA guy. We're going to keep the topics all NBA, and we're going to talk about that because there's a lot of interesting things going on, and I definitely want to get into that with you. So let's do it. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is this is something that's really kind of irked me over time. So we know that in sports, well, in life, nothing that's happening right now happened without a predecessor, right? Everything had to be prepped. Everything, there's history behind everything. And in sports, history is often revered, whether it's boxing or hockey or baseball or what have you. Baseball probably more than any respects the past. But it seems to me that the modern NBA and the modern NBA media are almost to a level of disrespecting the past eras and the past players in order to prop up the players that we see today and what they're doing. That's how I take it. Now, it could be, I get called this a lot. Oh, you an old head hater, Bruce. I could be, right? Yeah. But I like to say that I do have the benefit of having watched the NBA since the mid to late 1980s. And I say it all the time. I was watching the NBA when Larry Bird was waving the towel in the old Boston Garden. So I've been around and I have a reference point. Now, I'm not going to lie and tell you I don't have a nostalgia for the 1990s. That's probably my favorite time in NBA history.
Right.
But that said, for me, it's not just about nostalgia. I use all that historical reference in order to have a proper reference point when evaluating today's game and today's players, etc. Anyway, I wanted to get your thoughts on this to kind of start off. Am I hitting the note when I say that I feel like modern NBA players in a lot of cases, modern NBA fans and modern NBA media almost are disrespectful to the past eras and the past players?
Yeah,
or is that just me?
No. I think a lot of people can see it, and it's kind of obvious. But at some point, somebody threw the first punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the guys from the 90s, the legends that's retired. I don't know if they threw the first punch, but the way Charles Barkley and Shaq and all those guys critique people on their shows,
mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people in this era feel slighted. How they talk about him, and they keep talking about MJ, right? And so I think they might feel like the old heads threw the first punch. And then at some point they started saying, well, we're going to start going overboard and going to the other end of the extreme on how we rep the era now, because we're tired of y'all telling us we're soft. We're tired of y'all telling us we load manage and we do all these other things that y'all didn't do in the 90s and all of this stuff, man. So they start punching back. Right. And that's with the new media, the Draymond Greens. He ain't got no respect for nobody.
Right.
JJ Redick is on board. Like he's win at Larry Bird a couple of times.
I did some shows about that too.
You know what I mean? Give it arenas. He don't win at Rick Barry real hard. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a collective effort. I don't know if they organized it or if they on the same page, but it is collective. You can see it. That they're saying, well, look, if y'all not gonna respect us, we're not gonna respect y'all, and we're gonna big up our own self. Now, I say that one part, and then the last part on it is if you ever become part of the media as a former player, like Kevin Garnett is right now, you have a responsibility to help grow the league.
That's a great point.
And if the league is promoting what we see now and
Mm-hmm.
promoting the players that we see now, you will be going against the grain if you didn't follow suit with that. And now, once people become part of the media, I think that's something that producers or maybe Adam Silver himself, I don't know, someone
Mm-hmm.
gets in their ear and say, "Look, man, you have a responsibility to promote the league,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not, then you're going to be helping kill the league." So I think that's probably what we're seeing.
That's a great point, and I didn't even think about it from that perspective because I do not every single episode, but I listen to the Ticket and the Truth podcast as well to kind
Yeah.
of get their viewpoints. And full disclosure, I'm a Boston Celtics fan, and I have been since I was a kid. But being a trained journalist, I still also try to be objective with that. And so it is interesting because you can tell when you listen, Kevin Garnett is torn. He's very much torn. One of the things he said recently that almost surprised me is that he said, we got to stop thinking about basketball the way it was and
Mm-hmm.
think about it the way it is. And that is something that, my big brother was a really good ball player. He was all city in New York City back in the day with Steph Marbury and Felipe Lopez and these guys. And he played, Division II ball 4 years and briefly overseas and whatnot. So he knows ball, but he's always getting on me, telling me, Brucey, you gotta stop. You gotta stop hanging in the past. You don't have a hot tub time machine, He's always telling me, you gotta just look at the game for what it is today or don't look at it. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But I think for me, the biggest point of irritation is when you have fans and media members always talking about how bad the NBA used to be and how much better today's players are. And I feel like that's just so today's players in today's league. I just feel like that's so disingenuous because there's so much you're leaving out. And when you say those things, you're talking to a very specific audience. Now, to your point, it makes business sense. Grow the league, you have to talk to the younger generation and the younger demographic who you want to grow with your league and then grow up and spend their money. So I get that, but it is frustrating to me because, again, when you hear Kevin Garnett talk about it, on one hand, he talks about his mentality and the mentality that they had when they were coming up. Him and Pierce were talking about the load management, and we'll get to the 65 games and all that later. But they were talking about all that and how it was a badge of honor to play all these games and so on and so forth. But at the same time, he, to your point, understands that it is part of his responsibility to grow the league as it is. So that was a great point. I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. And that's the business side of it. And a lot of times I don't think about it from the business side because I'm just thinking about, for me, all I want to see is the best possible product. And that's not just NBA, that's any sport I'm watching. I want to see competition and the best possible product on the floor. So that was
I
a
think
great
those
point that
days.
you
I
brought.
think those days are gone, Bruce. Man, I don't think we go. I don't think the NBA. I look at the NBA as a person that was in its infancy. When Boston was winning 11 out of 13 finals. I
Absolutely.
mean, that was the infant stage. The media, the marketing part wasn't there. The
Right.
athletes wasn't there. The game wasn't there.
Right.
Right. Then you move on to the 70s, and then the ABA merged with them, and then you get this explosion of Dr. J and then Bird and Magic. And
Yes.
now this is someone that's grown into an adult.
Yes.
Right. This is a teenage 18 maybe, going into an adult. So now we're finding out how to market. Everything's maturing. We're finding out how to market the game. The players are getting better at the actual game, right? But it's the game is still pure, right? Then you get Magic, Bird, then you get Michael. Now we are full blown adult. This league has arrived. The marketing is at its best. And when I say marketing, I mean we know how to get the exposure out there. We know how to market a player. We know how to market the league. We know how to make money, but we're not doing it to the extent where it's messing with the pureness of the game. So the game was at its height. The NBA as a business was at its height. And it was the best of both worlds. That was and they rode that for probably the 90s to the early 2000s. Then the marketing got a little bit too much because now Mike is gone. We don't have that player that that we built our business model on, how to market one player. We don't have that player no more, so we got to create them. So now it's always trying to find a new Mike. And then now everything is more fake than it is real. The games is getting rigged. It's just like everything that the game is not pure anymore. It's almost like the food we eating. You know, you don't know if you're eating real rice or some man-made rice. You know, everything is just so jacked up now and artificial, and so is sports. Sports is like an artificial thing because they found out the money is more important, and we can make a lot of money by manipulating certain things in the media, manipulating the game a little bit, and that's what they did. And they were admitting to it. Like, we changed rules in the game for more scoring because that's more pleasing to the eye. Like that's exactly what they did. So now the game is so messed up. But the bad part is they're not going to revert back to the way it used to be because why? We're making more money this way. So we're never going to that league that we fell in love with. We never go see it again. We just go get media members telling us that don't believe your eyes, just believe what we're telling you.
So let me ask you real quick. This is funny. I want to make sure everybody knows this before we move on to the next topic. This is the first time you and I have ever actually spoken, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the reason I want to put that out there is because a lot of times I get accused of only, talking to people and having guests on my show who see things or think things the way I think them. And I want to make it clear that it happens that we agree on this, but this is the first time you and I are ever actually really sitting down talking ball. So I just want to make sure that I get that out there. All right. So it was funny that you mentioned some of the things you mentioned because that rolls right into our next topic. And what that is I constantly hear, generally from younger people, but I constantly hear the modern NBA players are more skilled than they've ever been. And when I hear that, I say, stop. And the first thing is, you just touched on it, how the rules were literally changed to proliferate offensive production, to boost scoring, and to allow the offensive player to do what they have to do with less obstruction. And so when I hear modern NBA players are more skilled than they've ever been, I'm like, how is that? For one, they literally allow ball handlers to carry and travel constantly.
Correct.
They've literally changed the rules to allow this. The 0 step, the gather step. I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 45 years old. When I was growing up watching ball, 0 step and gather step did not exist. Now, I'm not saying that rules can never change. I'm not saying that things can't evolve. But when you literally change the rules to make things easier and to allow players to get away with violations, I'm not sure how that means they're more skilled. And my second thing is, because more players today can shoot the three. I think the NBA on average as a league shoots 35, 36% from three. That doesn't necessarily mean they're more skilled. That means they do it more. And by repetition in most things in life, the more you do it, the better you get. Now, with that said, shooting all those threes to me just says they traded one skill for another, because you have bigs that can shoot the three, and people will tell you the bigs today are better, but those same bigs, other than Jokic and Embiid, can't go on the block, go over the shoulder, or get a step through and get a bucket in the post when you need one. So does that mean they're more skilled because they can shoot the three? Because they can't go and do other big man skills. It just means they traded one thing for another. Your thoughts on the narrative that today's players are so much more skilled than the players of the past?
I agree. Is that what you said at the end, that the big men traded one skill for another? They traded the post game, which is a skill and an art, for 3-point shooting, right? And all 3-point shooting is just, okay, we're shooting threes now. It was big men that had touch. You can look at their free throw shooting. You can look at Elijah Ron. You can look at Rich Smith. You can look at those big men back then.
David Robinson.
And see that they had touch when they shot the ball. Karl Malone was a good free throw shooter for a power forward, and a good elbow jump shooter. So they had touch. If they wanted to expand out to the 3-point line, it wouldn't have been a problem for them to develop that as well. So I wouldn't even look at it as like a skill, because we always had big men that could shoot. They just didn't shoot threes, right? So I wouldn't say they trading the post game for the 3-point skill, because that skill always existed. Like, we had big men that could shoot for sure. Right now, what they are doing is just abandoning the post, and that's going unnoticed by a lot of media, and they're not mentioning it, and a lot of fans are not aware of it. Yeah, like you said, it's 2 or 3 guys in the league that can post and go down there and do some damage at an A+ level, and that's Jokic, Embiid, and maybe a couple of other forwards. Like, maybe, I don't know, Kevin Durant is decent in the post, but he rely on that fadeaway a little bit too much. But yeah, my point is, the post game is a skill that's I think is more harder to develop and master than just shooting open threes. Right. So they didn't. If they did trade skill for skill, it's not even an equal skill. Right. And that's my opinion. So with them being more skilled, what about the wing players? I still haven't seen nobody more skilled than Kobe and Mike. Right. I still haven't seen nobody more skilled than Isaiah. So
That's right.
so are they surpassing the A+ skilled guys at every position that played before them? Probably not. They just doing it a little different, and they shoot more threes, and they just abandoning the mid range in the post game. And like I said, and mid range shooting is a skill as well. So no, I don't think they more skilled. They skilled in different ways, and they shoot more threes, and it looks good.
Right. And to your point, I will say I'm not a huge fan of his because I think there's a lot of wasted motion and unnecessary dribbling. But I think Kyrie Irving is super skilled. I think he's an elite 3-level scorer. He can get to the basket. Now, it's a lot easier to get to the basket today when you don't have to worry about a Mount Mutombo, a Dream, a D-Rob, a Zoe, a Shaq waiting there to punch your stuff when you go in there. But he's a very good finisher at the rim. He's good in the mid-range. He's good from three. He's good at the free throw line. He's an elite offensive player. Now, what gets me, though, they always talk about skills as if defense is not a skill. And you've got so many players that can't defend to save their life. They can't guard a parked car. And so, like, how do we think that skill only equates to one side of the basketball? That's one side of the floor. That's one thing I don't get. And so when we keep pushing this, the players are more skilled. This is the most skilled the league has ever been. I'm like, stop pushing the narrative. Like, we can big up today's players without flat out lying. I don't get it.
Yeah. Now I will come and defend Kyrie a little bit. Kyrie can play some D. I don't know how he got that bad reputation.
Huh.
Kyrie can play some D, man. I'm telling you. I mean, you don't go to Duke, and even though he ain't played but 10 games at Duke for Coach K, but you don't go to Duke and not get preached defense. You don't.
That's true.
I want you to watch Kyrie when he accepts the challenge, or when he was in Cleveland and he had to guard Steph Curry. He was in Curry's back pocket. He did a film study on James Harden when they first went back to Philly when he left Brooklyn, and they had that game in Philly. He did a film. I mean, it was a clinic what he did on James Harden. Kyrie can defend.
You're gonna make me go check this now. You gonna make me check it out. Go check the film. All right.
Oh yeah. So this is the thing with Kyrie and Steph Curry. Their slider frame.
Yes.
Curry's a little bigger now. He got in that weight room.
You can see he put the time in the weight room. You can see that.
And with this era of NBA with space and pace, and 5-man out basketball, they're putting the ball in their best guy's hands, which usually is a big wing like LeBron or somebody like that. And he's coming down and saying, I want a 1-4 screen and roll. Bring me Steph. And they're not preaching to fight over screens or hedge or do anything like that. They're switching
everything. Right? Yep.
And so he's saying, hey, bring me Steph. And now LeBron got Steph on him, and we're spreading the floor. And now Steph got to try to stop LeBron.
Right.
And he's looking exposed. Right. And so that's where their reputation of bad defenders came from, because they was guarding bigger guys. And you even look now with Dallas, they got him playing the 2. Why? All because Luka
can't play without the ball.
Right.
That's a different story though. No, that's a great point. But when you were talking about that, even with the fighting through screens or the switching, it made me think of a guy like Tony Allen. Now, that was a few years ago, and again, a different type of player, but that's a dude that he could guard your 1, he could guard your 2, he could guard your 3. And in this era of these slim, frail power forwards, he could even in some situations guard those guys. So I don't know that. Now, granted, he was an elite defender, but I don't know that it's always an excuse that, okay, everything is in the pick and roll, which that's another topic entirely, in terms of just lazy coaching. Everybody just wanted to do pick and roll or drive and kick. But anyway, I don't know if that's entirely an excuse for guys not to be able to defend better. Now, with that said, I totally get it. Like, you get in a mismatch and you got a 6'1" guard and Jokic at 7'1", he's either going to pass over the top or, make the guy look silly. But at the same time, when you got bigs trying to put the ball on the floor, if you get caught in that 1-5 pick and roll, right? Shouldn't the guard make it more difficult for that big to try and put the ball on the ground? That should force the big to throw it over the top and get it out of his hands, because the guard is going to take that if the big tries to dribble. So all these seem like basic defensive fundamentals that I don't know where they went, both on the team and individual level. But again, I'm not a coach, so.
Yeah, that's I guess easier said than done. I can't
Right.
figure it out either, man. Like with the NBA now, man, I can't figure none of this stuff out almost. Like all it's question marks all over the place. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take it to topic number 3 here. So this is good that it kind of flows right into that. So we're talking about modern NBA players being more skilled. So last week, unfortunately, was the anniversary of 2 things involving the late great Kobe Bryant. One, the 81-point virtuoso in, what was that, 2006 against the Raptors, as well as, unfortunately, his and his daughters and others' untimely death in that helicopter crash. Now, coincidentally, with that happening in that week, you had 5 players scoring 60 or more points in the same week. And so I did a show about it, and I thought about it. And first I was thinking the Mamba would be smiling down from heaven, because we know this is one of the most aggressive, ruthless scorers in the history of the game. Like attack, 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 attack. That was how the Mamba got down. But at the same time, even with all that attacking, this guy's 9 times first team All NBA defense. So he's going to get in the crouch and defend you on the other side. So would he be happy with all this elite scoring going on, or would he be upset that no one's defending anything? But I bring all that up to say,
he will be upset nobody's defending, and he'll be upset how they getting the points.
So yeah, I bring all that up. You had 5 guys score 60 or more points in the same week, and then I think last night Steph Curry scored 60 again. So this is 6 occurrences of 60 points or more in a 2-week span. That's never happened in NBA history before. So check this out. This is wild. You had Joel Embiid scoring 70 and Karl Anthony Towns scoring 62 on the same night. 3 days later, Luka scores 73, Devin Booker scores 62 on the same night. And now Curry had 60 last night, joining Kobe, who are the only players to score 60 points or more at 35 years or older. And so I bring all this up to say, again, I keep getting hit with the, look at what these young guys are doing. You're going to tell me that your era was better than mine? And I'm like, you don't think that? Again, we know for a fact, Stu Jackson, I want to say in 2004, he former vice president of the NBA, Stu Jackson put it out there that the rules were changed to allow for more freedom of movement and to allow the offensive players more room to do their thing. And then also when we see a more spread floor, like you mentioned earlier, once guys beat their first man, and remember, you can't hand check them, you can't forearm check them, you can't get physical with them, so it's a lot easier for the offensive player to get past the defender. There's almost no help. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Now, again, these guys are, for the most part, great shooters. They're hitting threes. Like Steph hit 10 threes last night. So that's 30 points right there. And real quick before I let you go, one of the things I bring up, Steph hit 10 threes last night. In Michael Jordan's 37 points per game season, which is the highest since the merger, he made 12 threes that entire season. So I say that to say, in my estimation, it's harder to score all those points in a tighter, more confined area without the benefit of shooting a ton of threes versus a wide open, spread floor, can't touch anyone, and you're shooting a ton of threes. Your thoughts on all this scoring? What does it mean for the modern NBA? Is this good? Is it bad? Where are you on all that?
Well, no, it's not good. It ain't good for the basketball purists. I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that's enjoying this though, but those would be the people that probably don't like basketball as much as we do, right? So, and those are the people that the NBA want to grab because they spend money too. They probably spend money more than we do, right? You get what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
So they're trying to be good business savvy men and women in the NBA. So I get it from the money side of it, but no, it's not the best basketball we could ever see, because if you look at basketball as a gumbo mix, if everything that's supposed to be in basketball is for offense, it's supposed to be post game, mid range, set plays, running off screens, on ball screens, off ball screens, catch and shoots, Dribble, drive and kick. All that stuff supposed to be in there. High post, low post, mid post. All that's supposed to be in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the offense, and then for defense, it's supposed to be where the player is actually allowed to play defense to their best ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we're getting is we're handicapping the defense, and then we're giving the offense, an advantage. But also the sets that they're running is all the same cookie cutter sets. Everybody's doing 5-man out. The big man is getting almost obsolete. A guy like Andre Drummond can't even get in the game, right? A guy like Dwight Howard or DeMarcus Cousins can't even get a job, right? A big man can't even stand in the paint and use his advantage as a 7-footer to protect the rim. He's got to be outside of the paint, sometimes in the corner with a 3-point shooter. Like it's ridiculous, and they're purposely doing it for more points. So you're not getting basketball in totality. You're just getting offense, and you only getting offense in one way: dribble, drive and kick, 3-point shooter. That's it. That's all you getting. And that's not basketball. And you got to look at basketball outside of the lens of the NBA. People think NBA and basketball is synonymous. Basketball is above the NBA. Like, basketball is a pure thing. NBA has drawn from it and saying, this is what we're going to give you our version of basketball. But basketball is so pure that it supersedes NBA. So you got to look at it that way.
To your point, that is an interesting point that you made, because it makes me think about international basketball, more specifically European basketball. And it's amazing to me because if we go back, everyone talks about we've never seen anything like Jokic before. But from all accounts, Arvydas Sabonis was Jokic before Jokic. Unfortunately, he was stuck behind the Iron Curtain in the Eastern Bloc, and he couldn't get over to the States to show us what he had until he was well past his prime. Now, that's a dude who anyone who played against him on an international level would tell you he was an animal. But with that said, you saw European guys, even superstars, Drazen Petrovic. He couldn't crack the starting lineup in Portland when he first got here. And this is the guy who scored 114 points in one game in Europe. Tony Kukoc, he was Luka before Luka in Europe. He got over here and he had a hell of a time. He was a 6-man off the bench with Mike and Scotty in Chicago. He didn't walk in the league and start killing. And so I bring all that up to say, you heard multiple European players, whether it's Jokic, whether it's Giannis, whether it's Luka and others, saying it's easier to score here than it is in Europe. What happened to the NBA that a European, not that there's anything wrong with him, but that a European player would dare come over here and open his mouth in the NBA to say that? Like, we never would have heard that in the past. To me, that says there's very little pride from NBA players that these guys would be able to come over here and talk like that. And the fact is, now we're talking about the players and the skill level that we talked about in the last topic. The European players, because they're getting all the traditional skill drilling and fundamentals, they're coming over here to our league more skilled, more ready to play, and more ready to immediately contribute. I think Luka now has the 3rd highest scoring average in the history of the game. I think he walked in the league getting 24 a game. Like, that's nuts. That's nuts. And it's crazy. I mean, it's
a couple of things that's going on, right? So the first thing is the NBA and European basketball did a role reversal.
They did. That's right.
So David Stern, he had a league of ruffians.
Yes.
Right. He had a league. He had a league of rough and tough Charles Oakleys, Anthony Masons, Charles Barkley's, Shaq's, these dudes, And so what would happen was these European players always was more skilled. Like Vlade Divac came over here a more skilled center than almost every 7-foot out there. He could dribble, he could pass, he could shoot, he could post, he could do almost everything except play defense. That's the one thing that European players don't come over here accustomed with is defense and athletic ability. So what happened is they would come over here, they would get overwhelmed with the size, the speed, the power,
physicality,
and the physicality, and the bullying as well. You seen Shaq when Yao Ming first came over.
Oh yeah,
bullied him, right? So you would get bullied when you came over. You seen when Kukoc was playing the Dream Team in the Olympics. What did Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan do? They went over there and bullied him. That was the best they had to offer. So no matter how skilled they were back then, the physicality would always make them second tier when they got over here, and it took them years to figure it out. A lot of times, right? Sometimes they didn't, right? So that was the first thing that happened, is that David Stern seen the openness and the skillfulness that was going on overseas, and he wanted to switch the NBA game to that. He wasn't able to accomplish it before he retired and passed it over to Silver, but Silver, he continued and took the torch and continued going in that direction, right? So, but meanwhile, what's going overseas? They're tired of getting bullied by us physically, going over there and beating them up during the Olympics. So they started trying to model their game like the NBA. So 10, 15, 20 years later, we get a whole reversal. Now that the NBA is more finesse and the European League is more physical. How did that happen, right? So that's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is that with those rule changes, we're no longer able to use our physicality to overwhelm them. And Adam Silver is saying, I purposely changed those rules because I think we should see more skilled players flourish. And we shouldn't have physical guys not allowing them to showcase their skills on a big stage. So so the rule changes kind of help facilitate that a more skilled player will have an advantage in this league, right? And then the third thing that happened is you get these great stars coming over here, and you see that wide open market in Europe that you want to tap into.
Oh yeah.
And the NBA wants that money over there as well.
Yes,
and
they
the
do.
best way to do that is promote the people that represent them in the NBA, and it works. You know, Serbia is a big basketball NBA fan now.
Yeah, it's a hotbed.
Because of Jokic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all it takes is one guy, and you must promote those guys, and you know, those are the things that's going on.
Yeah, and Slovenia with Luka, absolutely.
Yep.
Greece now, Giannis. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit. So we know that recently one of the big topics in the league has been this past season to kind of combat load management and players deliberately sitting out games, etc. It was put in a 65 game minimum with, I think, 20 minutes played in each game, that or an average of 20 minutes played, that players must have to be able to be eligible for postseason awards, all NBA teams, etc. And personally, I think that's fantastic. But now you've got players really complaining about this. Tyrese Halliburton was complaining about it the other day. Draymond Green was on his podcast complaining about it the other day. So what I want to do here is I want to play some of what Draymond Green had to say about this topic, and then we'll come back and address it. All right. So let's check that out.
All right. Yep.
I don't know, man. I don't think it's right. I think it's a tough rule to implement because, like, we travel crazy. We play a bunch of games. The speed of the NBA game today is totally different than it ever was before. All of a sudden, you see a lot more hamstring injuries, calf injuries, soft tissue injuries, all these different things, knees. And you got guys forcing it to get back so they can qualify, because guess what? These awards are very much so attached to the amount of money that you can make. They're very much so attached to that. So it's going to be interesting. You got a lot of NBA owners making huge investments into players, and we're just throwing guys out there banged up just to meet these requirements. See, Tyrese Halliburton came back tonight. Probably forced his way back a little bit earlier, not long ago, because he's seen that those numbers start to creep up. And guess what he did? Went out for another 4 or 5 games before he came back tonight. So it's going to get really interesting when you got these owners making these owners of these teams making these huge investments into players, and yet you got to throw them in harm's way just because there's a 65 game limit. Like, we all know when somebody's egregiously just sitting, and the difference when somebody's actually hurt. So if you don't have a core base of voters that can identify that, then maybe they shouldn't have a vote. Like, if you can't identify that, man, this guy's just been taking games off and not giving, then just simply don't vote for him. Because it is in the hands of the voters, right? So they just simply don't vote. But to throw guys in harm's way, I don't really bang with it. And now we got one of our premier faces in this league, the MVP of our league, possibly hurt for an extended period of time because he's forcing it. Because, yeah, course he should be in the running for MVP. Damn right he should. And so I think it's whack. I get what people was trying to get at, but you got a lot of people making these rules that don't know how it feels to play it back-to-back. They don't know how it feels to play a third game in 4 nights. They don't know how it feels to play 5 and 7. But aside from knowing how it feels to actually compete in that amount of games, because I know people say, oh, that's your job. Number one, you take sick days and go and then go to work the next day. So shut up. We don't want to hear it. But number two, again, when guys are actually hurt, it's a real thing. There was no debate that Joel Embiid was hurt tonight. I don't think anybody that's up for debate for anyone. And then you have something like that happen, right? Like, I don't think it's right. I disagree with it, and it'll be interesting to see how far this thing goes. Because all of a sudden, one of our main guys in this league, one of the faces of our league, is out forcing it to try, and it ain't so great now. So we shall see. But as I said before, wishing the best to Joel. Prayers up. Hope to see him back on the court soon, and hopefully it's nothing too serious.
All right, so that's Draymond Green and his thoughts on the 65 game minimum for awards and postseason awards and those things. And you know what? I'm gonna let you start. I've been running my mouth. You the guest. Go ahead. Give your thoughts on this, man. Because
he said a lot of things, right? Some of them hit the mark, some of them didn't, right? Let's start at where I think he might have a point, right? I do think trying to legislate and put a 65 game threshold was probably not a good move by the NBA, but I don't think that your argument should be because a player rushed himself back and got hurt because he was trying to meet that threshold. I don't think that's a good argument to make for the 65 games. The argument to make for the 65 games is, what did you get that number from in the first place? Like, how did you come up with 65? Because when you look at all these stars, you look at Steph, you look at Kyrie, you look at KD, you look at LeBron, you look at Kawhi. None of these guys are playing nowhere close to 65. I only think Giannis played 65 last year, right? So I don't even know where they got that number from.
I want to assume that's 75% of the games. I think that's around kind of where they got that from.
I guess so, but that's a weird number to come up with, and it's given. So the owners are being smart with this, right? Because they came up with the CBA, they came up with that Supermax thing, right? And what's going on now, if you don't meet that 65 game threshold and you don't get first, second, or third team all
can't
NBA,
get that Supermax deal,
you're not eligible for the Supermax. That saves the owners money, right? So I think that's something that they probably was like, oh man, yeah, this is a good idea, right? It had something to do with that. It didn't have anything to do with anything else. It had something to do with saving them the money, and then on the back end, it had something to do with enough people was complaining about it in the fan base or in media, or maybe even their business partners who they were trying to get TV deals with was like, hey, look, we aired X amount of games last year, and 25% of those games these star players didn't play. So I think that rule was more for the owners to save money and also for the league to actually secure their next TV deal. It had nothing to do with anything basketball. It was money for the owners and money for the NBA as a whole with their TV deals. That's the first thing, right? So if they really wanted to do it and it was really about basketball, then all they would have to do is say to the voters, listen, we want to give y'all direction on how we vote for these people, because right now they give votes to 100, 200 different media members, and all 200 of them got a different criteria for how they vote. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
To me personally, no. I chalk that up to, having served in the military and everything being about standards put down, and no matter where you go in the world, the standard is the standard. But right. I also have to acknowledge and understand the civilian environment does not always work that way in many different places.
Order is order, Bruce. Because, and I'm glad
you agree.
I'm glad you brought up the military. When you put up a soldier, sailor, or Marine, and you put or airman, and you put them up for an award, they go to awards board.
That's right.
The people who are observing them and grading them based on their military bearing, their uniform, how they answer questions, how they present, and all that stuff. We have a documented criteria that we can go down and check the blocks to see if they did X, Y, and Z.
I'm with you.
And then that also gives us transparency when you know that there's no favoritism in how we vote, because hey, here's how we graded it, and now people can, it's checks and balances with that. With imagine if they told you, hey, we just go pick you to be on this board, pick the best Marine for this award, and you have no criteria, and there's 5 people on the board with you, y'all got 5 different criteria. Don't make sense at all.
Well, let me interrupt you on that real quick. I think, and I've talked about this before, I think a big part of the reason why NFL, NBA, I don't know so much about the other sports, but the reason that there aren't specified criteria, college football as well, there aren't specified criteria, or at least not specified released criteria, is because they want people debating, arguing, talking about it. They want it to be a point of focus to bring more attention to that sport and that league.
Sure. I think that still can be accomplished, because even if there was a criteria, we still go debate it. Right?
That's true.
We still go debate it, right? So it don't even matter. So, and I don't think that the people who's running the NBA even care that much. You know, they think we eating out the palm of their hands anyway. They feel like whatever they feed us, we go eat, right? So they're not thinking about it like that. They're not thinking about the fan. Trust me, right? So they're just thinking about the money. If the money is still coming in, then that means everything is okay. So, but all right. So with a criteria, you wouldn't have to say you're disqualified if you don't play 65 games. You could just tell the voters, I want consideration to go into who's playing the most games. And I agree with that. I think the closer you get to the standard, you should get more points for it. And if the standard is 82 games, the person that gets closest to that, if you got 5 candidates and 4 of them played 70 games, but one of them played all 82, we're going to give a little bit more consideration to that guy that play 82, because he's closer to that standard. But that don't mean that, or if one of the guys played 64, that we go disqualify him. Like, you shouldn't disqualify him for that. He should still be in the running, but we're going to put consideration into how many games he played versus how many games the other candidate played. And I think that's how you do that. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think you have a great point there, but I think a big part of it is the league allowed for this load management thing to proliferate, and now it's like, what is it? What's the expression? The horse is out of the barn, I think it is. I'm not a country boy, but something like that. And now the fact is they're trying to get them back in, but you really can't, right? Because the door is open, they've already run out. And so what they're trying to do is get a handle on this load management thing, because I disagree with you when you say that they don't care about the consumer, because the consumer has been complaining for a few years now, as well as the advertisers. I guess the advertiser is probably bigger than the consumer, but they've both been complaining that, you know, maybe a family saves for a year to get a ticket for the one time LeBron comes to town. And it just so happens that LeBron is load managing or sitting out for rest that night or whatever. And let's say LeBron is, obviously he's a Laker. Let's say he's playing against the Celtics. He's only coming to Boston one time for that year. And so maybe this kid growing up in Boston, his favorite player is LeBron. He wants to see him. LeBron is resting that night. Like, that's not cool. That's a really tough spot to be in. And so I think that the NBA is, to some extent, taking that stuff into account, because it's hurting the bottom line a bit. And then also on the advertiser side,
it definitely hurting the bottom line. It's just noise. It's just noise, Bruce. It's noise, and they always try to use that. Oh man, because Jordan said that a while ago, and we don't have a Jordan in the league no more. Yeah, Jordan said that a while ago, but people ain't built like Jordan.
Kobe said it too.
Okay, after Kobe, nobody's built like that anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
I just looked it up. Kobe played 65 or more games 16 times in 20 years.
Yeah,
and
but
2 of those seasons he had major injuries. You know,
exactly, and he played through a lot of injuries. But they're regurgitating Jordan saying that, and you're not trying to meet Jordan's standard in every way. So stop trying to use his quotes and say that's the reason why you shouldn't sit out a game. If
fair enough. But let
me say this though. Let me say this one thing. Because I probably done already forgot it. Let me see if I can pull it back in. So, the example they use of the dad that bought his kid a ticket, and they showed up and LeBron wasn't playing, and that dad spent his last on that ticket. I'm sorry, that's life, right? And I would tell that dad, if you spent your last on a freaking ticket,
You probably have more priorities.
Yeah, you shouldn't be worried about if LeBron's sitting out. You should be you should go back to school, sir, and find a profession that's gonna make because I wouldn't spend my last on no freaking Lakers ticket so my son can see LeBron. I'm fine watching LeBron on TV.
So I get that, but just I'm making a rough example. But let's say you told your kid, hey, if you get straight A's for the entire school year, I know you're the biggest LeBron fan. I'll get you tickets from when he comes here next year. And so the kid does everything you asked of the kid, right? You made a deal with the kid, right? You made a deal with the kid. The kid comes through. The kid has earned it. You work a couple overtime shifts, whatever it is that you got to do to make that happen. And now you go there and his favorite player is sitting there, street clothes. Yes, that's life, but that's also not cool. And that's something that could have been avoided.
I don't have a problem with it because especially me, I would teach my son to like basketball more than the men who play the game.
I get it,
so,
but
if we go to a basketball game, you get to see a lovely arena. You get to see tons of basketball fans, and you get to experience a basketball environment. It ain't like you was going backstage to meet LeBron.
That's true, but you
was going to hopefully. I would never set my son up to be that type of a man fan or idolize any type of man. You can like the sport. I don't care nothing about these daggone dudes that's running on the floor.
So I feel you, but we're also from a different generation, right? And we know that most of the basketball fans now, they're not even team fans. They're fans of players. So they idolize the players. So, I get that. But also, even moving past that, I think a big piece of it as well is the advertisers. And the advertisers are complaining when on a big Saturday night game, the big name player is not playing. And so even if we're at home, we turn on the game. All right, cool. Hey, oh man, I can't wait to see. I'm just Paul Pierce match up with LeBron tonight. And both of them are out for rest. Like, no, man, I'm changing the channel. I ain't watching this now. Or, whatever the matchup
lucky
is.
you get your time back. And lucky you get your time back. You don't have to sit there for 2 hours and be entertained. Right. That's a good day. Because I have an addiction to basketball. Right. So any excuse, if I sit down and all of a sudden my electricity was out, know what? I would be like, man, that was a blessing because I really didn't want to sit and waste these 2 hours. I can be doing something productive. That's how I think. Right. But I have an addiction to it. So I end up, if I can do it, I'm going to do it. So if I do it and let's say I like LeBron and LeBron's not playing, okay, well, great. I get to go build something. I get to go do something around the house. I get to go do something with family. I think that's good. But you hit the nail on the head when you said the advertisers. They're using it. They won't come out and admit and say, look, man, like it's messing with our TV money and we got a new deal we trying to close.
That's right.
Instead of them saying that, they're going to try to blame it on the fans that's buying tickets and coming from Europe to see LeBron play. Come on, that's just bad risk management right there. If you came from Europe and you holding the sign up, which I think the NBA is probably paying those people to hold those signs up. Hey, I came all the way from Europe to see LeBron play, and they smiling. Man, come on, man. That's idiotic, man. That all the way from Europe to see LeBron play, seriously?
Well, I think it's some of both, man. But getting back to some of the other things that Draymond talked about that really kind of got to me is he talked about the travel. I don't know if he said it in that particular clip we were listening to, but earlier in that whole little soliloquy that he gave, he talked about the travel. We travel. We play 4 games in 5 nights. And I'm listening and I'm thinking, Draymond, I'm not trying to denigrate what you do. And we know that a lot of travel can have some wear and tear on your body, but you're not flying commercial anymore. I heard a story recently about how the Celtics back in the day when Larry Bird and McHale and them were playing. Now, of course, this is 30 years ago. But the point is, this is one of the best teams of all time. And I think they missed a flight and they were stuck in the airport all night. And all they had to eat was like hot dogs from some hot dog stand that, stayed open for them to feed them. So they weren't getting the gourmet food. They were flying commercial. They had to sleep in the airport all night long, wake up in the morning, take whatever flight to get where they were going, still go out there and perform on a high level. Like, I think these players today are so spoiled. Now, granted, like my brother tells me, Brucey, you don't have a hot tub time machine. It is what it is. And I think it's a combination of everything that they've been given, how they've had their butts kissed since AAU and Pee Wee basketball or whatever, and the amount of money that they're making that I think sometimes they lose touch. So I'm going to run through real quick before I let you go a couple of other comments that he made. the speed of the game is like nothing we've ever seen before. Now, that's not necessarily true. If I'm not mistaken, the 1960s was the fastest pace ever in NBA history. The 80s were an extremely fast pace as well, despite what people think. Now, this current generation is also a very fast pace, but there were other fast paces and guys were still coming out and playing. And despite the fact that the pace is fast and it causes a lot of soft tissue injuries, Draymond, I get that. However, back in the day, we can't argue that the game was immensely more physical. Like we talked about, power forwards and centers and the physical contact when you go into the lane and being able to be, hand checked and forearm checked. And even if you're moving without the ball, guys are giving you elbow shivers and sticking knees out and all of that, right? And so the game was so much more physical back then. You know how many games Karl Malone missed in his first 10 years?
Probably
10.
none. Probably 10? Yeah.
Yes. 820 games. He missed 10.
Yeah.
John Stockton played 80 plus games in 17 out of 19 seasons. And people will tell you he's one of the most physical point guards who ever played. Now, granted, there's some luck involved in that. There's some genetics and all that. But the point I'm trying to make is I think Michael Jordan played 80 plus games 10 times out of 15 seasons. These guys went out there and they got it in. And they were doing it under much more difficult circumstances. So it drives me crazy that Draymond would sit here and talk about all that other stuff. He made the comment of sick days. I thought that was super tone deaf because the fact is most Americans don't have benefits and can't afford sick days, right? I mean, that's just it. Most Americans are not making tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So for you to make such a tone deaf comment and say, when you're not feeling it or when you're tired, you take a sick day and don't go to work. So shut up. Like Draymond, what are you thinking, bro? Like, what's wrong with these guys? So, where are you on those comments that he made? I'm
all over the place because I'm all over the place. That's why I'm at. So, all right. So I look at it a couple of different ways, right?
Okay.
One, he is trying to make a point about the 65 games being whack, which is true. The 65 game is a whack rule, right? For a lot of reasons. But he's pulling at everything that he can pull from to try to prove his point. And he's just not connecting it well because he hasn't sat down and really thought it out well enough. He just grasping for straws, right? So I give him the benefit of the doubt, and I won't scrutinize.
I don't.
Well, I'm not gonna scrutinize him too much about what he's trying to use. I'm just gonna say, nah, that don't really connect with what you're trying to say. But I'm with you. Y'all should stop with the 65 game stuff, right? But you need to find a better argument. But as far as the speed of the game, and he's making those complaints, and he's saying that the pace is faster, and they're playing back to backs and 3 out of 4 days and all that stuff. I feel for him, man, because they just not building them like they built our granddads and our dads. They ain't building them like that no more, and they're not even building houses or cars. Like nothing is getting built.
That's a fact.
With the amount of pressure that's supposed to be able to make a diamond. Right, nothing is getting put under that amount of pressure. Everything is just getting, built super fast, super easy. Tesla look good, but if it get in the wreck, it's gonna look like a tuna can. All this stuff. So we got all this pretty stuff and things. Oh, we're faster, we're shooting threes, blah blah. But y'all don't have the same type of bones that we was built with before. Right. It's 75-year-olds that's out working 20-year-olds right now. Right, it just is what it is, right? So, yeah, I kind of feel for him, man. Y'all some Rudy Poots a little bit, and that's why they so mad that people keep pointing that out and telling him that no, y'all just soft, man. We went through this, So I mean that's what it is. But I want to say one more thing about that 65 game thing though. They're gonna find themselves in a situation to where Steph Curry, he hasn't played 65 games in 4 or 5 years, and all these other guys, Kawhi, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, all these guys that used to make first and second team All NBA are not going to be eligible for it no more, right? But so you're going to have guys like, let's say Porzingis. Well, Porzingis don't play a lot of games either.
No,
but let's say
I get your point though.
Let's say he did a French All-Star. Is the one that's going to be eligible to make first and second team.
That was one of Draymond's major arguments, yeah.
Right. And then here comes his agent coming to them saying, hey,
Pay
My
up.
client made first team.
Mm-hmm.
I want that Supermax. And in the case of Boston, what you go pay? You already paid Brown the Supermax. You got to pay Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
And if Porzingis' agent come in and say I want that thing too, and Tatum didn't play 65 games, so he can't get it, that's gonna be a real tough situation.
Well, guess what that says to me? Man up and play the games. I mean, if you're legitimately injured, I get it. But other than that, man up, play the games. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
Paul Pierce
fair.
was talking about how he was literally before a game in Atlanta, he got his whole knee drained and he's literally squeezing it and watching the liquid come out, so he can get out there and play. Those guys could do it. These guys could do it. They just don't want to do it.
Yeah, but do you blame them? I mean, should they want to do it? I mean, because when you really think of it, the owner still go get his money anyway.
Mm-hmm,
right?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like the people who are trying to force you to go out there and put your body on the line are not going to be the people that's trying to help take care of you when in a case like Junior Seau, when you can't stop waking up with these headaches that's driving you nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And and CTEs is affecting you. Or for basketball players who get up and can't get out of bed for the first 30 minutes because their knees and backs are hurting so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think about that when I'm like, look, man, it's a kid's game that we're playing. Y'all making a lot of money. Y'all paid them, but don't throw it in their face and say, hey, I'm paying you $30 million a year. You should play on this knee that you need to drain. And the owner ain't putting his body on the line and he's making billions every year. I look at it from that sense too. I'm like, look, man, who are you to tell this dude that he need to get out there and play on this bad back or this bad knee? If he don't want to play, he want to play. For the most part, most of the people in the NBA love the game. And they want to play every single time every minute they want to play.
I don't know that
everybody ain't got
it.
it. Well, for these guys, you don't get that good without loving it. For these superstars and these all-stars, they love the game, right? For these now, for somebody who just happened to be 7 foot and was like, oh man, they made me play in 10th grade, they might not love it. Mm-hmm. But for a guy like Kyrie, all this stuff that Stephen A used to say about Kyrie, he might retire. He don't love the game and all this stuff. You don't get that good without loving it. This dude, he's practiced more than probably everybody in the league. He's been practicing ever since he was 5, this game. When they suspended him, he came back and it was like, all right, we go unsuspend you, come back. He played the next game and was ready to go. He was already in shape. How does that happen if you don't love the game? How are you already in shape, ready to go, in rhythm to play a game at the drop of a hat like that? So you can't convince me that these dudes don't love the game. If their bodies is saying I can't do it, then they can't do it. Right? Everybody's not built like Kobe and Mike. Kobe and Mike don't care. Especially Kobe.
Yeah, you're right. I guess the last thing I got to say about that before we move to the next topic is they tell me all the time how today's players are so much bigger, stronger, faster, better, more athletic, right? It's evolution, Bruce. Today's players are just bigger, stronger, faster, better. Cool. And they have more sports medicine and better sports science and better technology. They got all that, right? They got all that. What's going on? That's all I got to say.
Evolution in basketball and in sports is evolution in basketball, because I don't hear it in football, but evolution in basketball is the biggest crock of BS that I ever heard in my life, man.
I'm with you.
You mean to tell me the evolution that usually when we look at the science book, that evolution takes thousands of years to do, like, you just can't throw.
It doesn't happen in one generation.
Yeah, it don't happen in one generation. So the evolution you're talking about, you telling me the players are bigger, faster, stronger? Nah, I don't think they're bigger, faster, stronger, right? Because we're not bigger, faster, stronger in general. In society, I still don't see nobody breaking Usain Bolt's records. Right. So you can't tell me we're bigger, faster, stronger, and Wilt and Mike still has the highest vertical jump, and all these things. No, you're not bigger, faster, stronger. What's really going on is that bigger guys are playing different positions that normally they wouldn't play. Like, you got a 7-footer that'll play small forward. Normally that 7-footer would have to learn, like Jermaine O'Neal had the type of body that Kevin Durant had when he came in the league out of high school.
Yeah, he was frail.
But since he was 7 foot, they put him on a weight program, and hey, you got to learn how to get bigger and play in the post.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Now, if Durant would have came in the same year Jermaine O'Neal would have came in, he would have been on the bench riding just like Jermaine O'Neal, trying to figure out how to play power forward.
That's right.
Right. So all it is the 7-footers are allowed to play a position below what they normally would.
That's right. Okay. That was a good one. I like that. But now let's move on. So All right. We know we can't have an NBA discussion without talking LeBron James. And so I'm a full disclosure, right? Because again, you and I have never discussed LeBron before. This is our first NBA talk. I'm not a LeBron fan. Let me make it clear. He has had one of the greatest careers in the history of the NBA. Now, the reason I do that is because I don't want it said that I'm not acknowledging the greatness of what he's done. Now, that said, two things can be true. I'm not a fan of how he's manipulated his career, nor am I a fan of the way he's manipulated the game. That said, he's still won 4 championships, and the fact, irrefutably, is that he's won everywhere he's been. Cool. Got it. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this recent tweet that he put out with the hourglass. And it seems to me that he's being passive aggressive once again. Now, I'm a big proponent of men should behave in a certain way. Now, again, that could be just the fact of the era that I come from and how I was raised and you know, the life I lead and so on and so forth. But I do believe that men should act in a certain way. And one of those ways is say what you mean what you say. I'm not with the passive aggressive and the mysteriousness and people trying to figure out what you're saying and having to, you know, call Sherlock Holmes to deduce what LeBron James is saying in his tweet, right? I'm not with all that. Now, that said, I also understand the genius that he has in terms of when people are talking about him less because his teams aren't very good, he always finds a way to immediately get back in the public eye. And I think this recent tweet was some of that. So I want to get your thoughts on this hourglass tweet, what you think it means or what you thought he was getting at, or was it just, you know, an attempt to go ahead and swing the pendulum back and bring the attention back to him because the Lakers aren't playing well right now and the attention was not on him?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, man. You can't really speculate what that hourglass meant. It could mean anything, right? And I'm with you. I don't like the passive aggressiveness and not saying what you mean either. But you are correct, man. He do got he's not a dummy,
no,
right?
Not at all.
And he is savvy about how to you know, how to keep the conversation on him and his team. And I mean, and everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about, so, you know, and now they've won 2 straight, and I don't know, man. It's so much stuff that can go in there. I don't know what to think of it, man. It's annoying for sure. It's annoying, especially coming from a superstar who is the face of the league still. It's very annoying that he's attached to so much drama. It is. It's just annoying, man. But I don't know if I have any real thoughts on it. I did an episode talking about it.
So did I.
And now that I had a you know, I'm able to step back and think. I think I might have been off the mark when I talked about it because I fell into the trap of he wants Darvin Ham fired, and
I believe that.
It could be right, but now I'm thinking about it like maybe it was some other strategy that he was trying to push. I don't know. You never know with LeBron.
No, you don't. Yeah, I'm lost because I'm thinking, is it time is running out on Darvin Ham? Is it time is running out on LeBron's time in LA? Is it time is running out on this current roster construction that he has in LA? You know, it could be a number of things. And again, I think it's probably more, I'm going to get people talking about me again, because whenever they talk about me, I think LeBron is truly a proponent of there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think he's learned that.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Bruce. Since we can't figure out and pinpoint what it is that he was talking about, can we pinpoint who that message was for? Was it for the Lakers organization or was it for fans?
I would think it would be more for the Lakers organization. I believe LeBron wants to stay around as long as he can because I don't believe that he can win another championship, and I think he knows that as well. So he wants to push those records out as far as he can, get as high as he can on all the different leaderboards. Because what is he? Top 5, obviously number 1 in scoring, top 5 in assists and rebounds, right? So he wants to get as high up all those leaderboards as he can to continue to have more ammunition for the GOAT debate. Again, for me, there is no GOAT debate. I think it's clearly Michael Jordan, but that's a topic for another day. But I think that's his goal. So I think the answer to your question for me would be it's more for the Lakers organization than it is for the fans.
Which is a problem, because why the heck you can't go to them directly, or why your agent can't go to them? You get what I'm saying? So yeah, I would love for that to be a message for fans somehow, and not the Lakers organization. Because I that's almost like someone that lives in your house can't come and talk to you about something that's a pressing issue, but you see them drop it on Facebook as a
yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You see that a lot, man. Like, oh man, we got this little thing going on we need to figure out, and then all of a sudden you see it's their what do you call it when you post? I don't know what they post it on their feed, and you're like, shoot, are they talking about me? You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I never liked that, man. I never liked it.
Nor do I. All right, last topic before I let you get out of here, man. New York Knicks is, for a team that has not won a championship since 1973, is still, for whatever reason, one of the marquee brands in the NBA. Madison Square Garden is one of the marquee arenas. That's why you always see players, they want to play their best and go off in Madison Square Garden, the Mecca of basketball, as it's called. My question for you is, why do you think the New York Knicks can't get the marquee free agents to go there? And I bring that up because they are, again, playing extremely well under Coach Tom Thibodeau. You see Jalen Brunson he's playing his butt off out there. He's doing his thing. He's an all-star, I think, for the first time. Probably will make, second team All-NBA, maybe third. But the point is, he's playing his butt off. The Knicks are playing their butts off. They had just won 9 straight before the Lakers snapped that streak last night, I guess. And they are, as it sits right now, I think the 3rd seed in the East, which no one expected. So, but we know that they really don't have a chance of winning a championship without that superstar. Why do you think the Knicks can't get a marquee free agent to go there?
Well, first, I think Brunson was a marquee free agent, but he got there because his dad was there. So, they had the inside scoop on that. So I would say they got one, but I know you're talking about the real top tier guys, because he wasn't even an obvious marquee. Only people that knew, Dallas was harboring a lot of skill that we weren't able to see. You had to really be watching him play to say, that dude got something, and Dallas is just not allowing it to come out because of how they play with Luka. Right. So I knew he was that, but they wasn't tracking it like that, like it was a big signing, right? So as a matter of fact, a lot of people say that it was a mistake to give him that much money, and now they eating crow on that.
Yeah.
So, but you're talking about the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the Kevin Durant's. Why, when they was free agents, why they didn't give them a look? Well, because the Knicks was too loud, and it wasn't the Knicks organization that was loud about it. It was freaking Stephen A. Smith. First of all, none of those dudes like Stephen A. Smith. Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Kawhi. I don't know about LeBron, but Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Kawhi, they don't care too much for Stephen A. Smith. So for him to be, when they're free agents, for Stephen A. to be the loudest voice on TV, on the worldwide leader in sports, who's supposed to be the face of ESPN, he's loud and he got a lot of reach to be coming out there inviting them to New York. They would almost do the opposite just because Stephen A. was asking them to go. Just because when Kawhi was leaving the Spurs or leaving Toronto, and Chris Broussard was lying, saying, "Oh man, I'm hearing he's going to the Lakers," blah blah blah, all this line and stuff like that. It was almost like, I'm gonna do it despite, because y'all not talking to my people. Where y'all getting this from? And I'm like, they're almost doing things that's the opposite of what the false media is out there putting those false narratives out. But that's what it seems like, right? So they just too loud. They too loud, and Stephen A. Smith is the loudest one.
All right, fair enough. I'm gonna leave it right there, man. I'm gonna let you get out of here. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mel. Before I let you go, man, tell the people where they can find you.
Mandown Sports on YouTube, Mandown Sports on Facebook. You come over there, man. It's a lot of fun, man. We're gonna have Bruce over there probably next week, or we got the next, man. So hey Bruce, I think it's a way that I might be able to record on my platform and yours at the same time. I gotta figure it out. Well, if you go ahead and get StreamYard before then,
okay, we'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah, so we can figure that out there. But yeah, Bruce will be on my show next week or we got the next, man. So look forward to that, and then hopefully y'all come over there and give me a subscribe as well, man. It's a good time over there as well, man. Once again, Mandown Sports on YouTube.
All right. Well, listen, thanks again for joining us, Mel. Totally appreciate it very much, man. And thanks for, sharing your flavor with us, and look forward to coming through, checking your show out, and we'll do that. And for all of you still here on YouTube with me, if you haven't already, please make sure you click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you do that. And we're almost there. We're about to get these call-in shows going. So bear with me while I get the tech ready for that, because looking forward to it. And I know a lot of you looking forward to it too. So I'll be back with you next episode, and I'm out. Peace.